Hey guys, Mike here. So we're going to get into your great questions and comments. There was a whole boatload of them, so we had to kind of narrow them down. And with some of these, if they're covering the same topic, I'll read maybe 2 or 3 off at the same time, and then we'll get into answering the questions. I obviously want your feedback. You can help me answer these questions and stuff if you got anything to say, because some of you are experts in this some of these fields or these sectors we're going to talk about and stuff. And our first viewer asked here, do you think higher gas prices will increase inflation and the Fed will have to do another hike? And the answer is I don't know about the other hike because I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but absolutely yes. Oil prices do have an effect on inflation. That's what you're seeing in Canada and other countries as well. And here's what happens. Basically, you see this. Higher oil prices contribute to inflation directly and by increasing the cost of inputs. It increases not only gas going to your gas tank, but all transportation. Imagine the ships to bring everything over in our country. Imagine the trains, planes, automobiles, all that good stuff. Fertilizer, right? That's another one. So inputs go up. That's why it is absolutely an increase on inflation. Will it continue to rise? We'll have to see. Now, Joe comes in and he answers that question about, I asked you guys, why do you think gas went from $5 to $3.50 pretty fast? And I already knew the answer, but I want to see what you wanted to say. And I kind of wanted to prove a point here. And he says Biden depleted our oil reserves, which is correct. And then Ron says the same thing, Biden releasing the oil reserves. Jeff goes on to say, if Biden has his way, we'll get back to $5 a gallon. Some of you guys think we're getting back to $5 for sure. But my point is, if you actually go through the comments, and this is what I was talking about, just us as a country, it's hilarious to watch this. Like, think about it. I personally, what I think is an emergency, probably not. But imagine if you're somebody, let's say you got a couple making $75K a year or less, or even an individual making $50K or less, and you're having to drive a lot, especially for your work, and you're paying $5 a gallon. That's the average. Let's say you're in California and you're paying, what were you guys paying? $7, $8, $9? If the national average is $5, New York, other places. That's an emergency for you. How long can you sustain that, right? And so for me, I'm glad he did something no other president's ever done and released oil reserves and got the stuff down. But what's crazy is you'll still have people complaining, even though it saved them thousands of dollars. They will still complain because they hate the other side so bad. No different if Trump was in office and he did it. The other side would gripe, moan, and complain. Oh, they're so low now. If there's an emergency, we're doomed. All this crazy mess. And so it's just funny to watch how it works. But that's why I asked that question. I said, watch, you're going to have people in here just roasting it and actually fighting against their own best interest, right? I mean, but then they'll stand up for the oil CEO, right? Because in our country, what have we done? One party is all for fossil fuels. One party is for green. That's ridiculous. Isn't that stupid? I mean, good Lord. Again, I can go on that one for hours, but I'm not going to get into that. But it's just amazing how people will fight against their own best interest just because the other side did something. I always said one of the parties will come up with a cure for cancer and the other side will fight it. Watch. Mark my words, I'm telling you. Now, what is the TradingView indicator to the right? The one with the yellow and blue, that is a volume profile. Okay, you go into TradingView, just type in VRVP, visible range, volume profile comes up. Boom, there it is. Go into settings, change them however you want them. Now, and guys, before we continue, if you're getting anything out of this, please hit that thumbs up down there. I really appreciate it. And if you like the material here and the videos, think about subscribing. Graham asked, how do you get intraday news that moves the market or specific stocks? And here's what I do. I set alerts on this because I kind of have to. But that economic calendar I show you guys every day has times on it of when this is coming out. This is Eastern time. And I'll set it. Like today, yesterday was Friday, right? So we had news coming out at 9:45. I had an alert set. The best thing to do is find you somebody you trust on Twitter on these news feeds because they have these bots that will pull the news in immediately. And I'm talking about as soon as it drops, within seconds, it'll pop up your phone and you'll get the basics of what you need to know and stuff. So that's how you get it. Just find a trusting source for yourself there. Now, Ranger Partner says fundamentals are out. Fed liquidity is everything now. And that is absolutely the truth. You watched my video yesterday. If you didn't, I'll link it at the end. I showed you why we hadn't had some crazy off-the-wall drop this year. And it's because of liquidity, right? Remember all the fear-mongering video? People said the Treasury is going to have to be refilled. We're going, we're going to be doomed. And I said, nope. They're going to take it from the reverse repo program and move it over. That's exactly what happened. Oh, my goodness. Look at that. And so, yes, now what's happening is they're still running the balance sheet off. The question is, there's going to come a point in time, right, where that's going to put a lot of stress. Because why? Remember, the Federal Reserve in 2010 up to 2022, I think, or somewhere in there, actually up to the end of 2021, was the biggest buyers of bonds, right, and mortgage-backed securities. But more importantly, the bonds, right? And so now they're not. Right? So somebody has to step in on that. How do we function as an economy? How do all these companies function? Bonds, right? And so you showed you the chart Thursday, where 65 to 70% of our economy depends on selling of these bonds because we're just a debt-ridden society, and companies, the government, everybody else. As you can see, we just hit 33 trillion for the first time in history. So it's going up real fast. And why? Because, like I said a year ago, I said wait to see how fast this debt goes up because of what? The interest you have to pay now. They're having to sell these bonds at crazy rates they hadn't had to do in a long time. And so it's going up fast. So there will come a point in time. I don't know what the point is. If you know it, let us know. If they keep running that balance sheet off, you will absolutely see something that happened in 2018 where you will get a major crash or a problem in the bond markets. People are going to have to step in and keep buying, right? And that's why it's funny. That's why a lot of people say, I just don't understand how the stock market is going up as high as it is, because it's not the only game in town. People are really going into treasuries and bonds by the trillions of dollars, right? Well, they figured out another way to do it, guys. Just invest in 10 stocks. That's what they did, pretty much. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is a good one here. I thought people were running out of money and running up credit. Where do they get all this money for new iPhones? Well, that's easy. The Apple Card. That's how I bought my laptop 3 years ago. So Apple is genius, right? They got this card for a reason. I'm sure people are putting their phones on it, the iPads and everything else. And eventually, they'll sit there and have to start paying really high interest rates whenever this policy or this certain time frame where they're basically not charging me interest is up, right? And then another viewer asked a good question, which is, so on credit cards, if you only make minimum payments, then it's good. Don't you have to pay interest on the remaining amount? And then, of course, Cal down here tries to straighten this out and say yes. Here's what's going to shock you. 43%, according to some Experian poll they did, pay the minimum amount due, right? And so this is why people basically will run thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars up on credit cards and never be able to get out from under it, because the credit card interest rates are like 15 to 25% depending on your credit score and stuff. And so it is detrimental. It is crazy to just pay the minimum balance. I mean, you pay that thing off every month if you can. That does need to be your main focus, is getting those credit cards paid off. And this is what keeps people in the poorhouse right here. So good question. Next we got here, Mike, the system seems broken, especially with the erosion of the middle class. What do you think the solution is? And I'll go ahead and go with this comment because this is one part of the solution by Purple Bass. If you don't want the rich making the rules, then stop voting for them. Amen. So what's the solution? It's us. The solution, the problem can never be solved until we stop being lazy and going in a voter's booth and just marking an R and a D and not looking at who's running and all that stuff. Now, there's only so much we can do. Let's be fair about that. Gerrymandering is a big thing. I showed you some of the maps on last Saturday's video, I believe it was. And so these politicians on both sides have figured out a way to keep our vote from not counting. Okay, the representatives are much harder to get rid of than the senators are, because that's a statewide vote. Okay, every state gets 2 senators, right? And I'll show you something in just a minute and show you what I'm talking about. New Jersey, I'm calling you out on this one. So, if we keep voting the same people in, like people keep voting Mitch McConnell in, right? People keep voting Nancy Pelosi in. It's no different where I come from, state Alabama. People, I mean, I grew up in Mississippi too, so both states there, I mean, the poverty level is crazy there. The wealth, they're 2 of the biggest welfare states there are, but they keep voting the same politicians in. I don't know why, right? I heard somebody talking about California the same way, right? A lot of people leave in California, but they keep voting the same politicians in. It's one party dominated in all those states. That's the way it is. And so if you keep voting against your own best interest, then that's what happens. So again, only so much we can do, but it has to start here. And term limits, outlawing gerrymandering, I mean, all that stuff would help. But these politicians are like ticks. They have found a way to dig in and stay there and make sure our votes don't count in a lot of ways. So just keep that in mind. But it's about educating ourselves. That's the big thing. Don't believe for a second those parties are there to protect you or defend you, okay? Now, struck a big nerve with executive pay. So Robert here goes off to say executive pay is one thing to gripe about, but transitioning to top 1% earners versus bottom 50% doesn't paint a bigger picture of the broken system. It is a system dispassionate about your wants and needs. It rewards hard work and all that good stuff. Top 1% pays 40+% of annual federal taxes as well. The bottom 50% pay less than 3%. Guess who gets most of the social benefits from the taxes? You were spot on about the political elite. They somehow make better stock picks than 99% of professional market makers. How is that? Too bad they can't seem to be as good about running the country. And all great points, by the way, there, Robert. The only thing I would say is the reason why the top 1%, remember, they pay the most in taxes because I showed you they have the most wealth. But just again, don't be fooled. When you go down and say who pays higher percentages, is it going to be the people making between like 75 to 400,000, right? Are going to pay a higher percentage in taxes, or is it going to be the top 1%? And let me go ahead and save you the research. It's going to be the people making 75, usually roughly 100,000, about 100,000 to 400,000. Not the elites. They got way too many loopholes. They don't take paychecks like we do. So no, percentage-wise, they do not fall for that. They don't pay anywhere near it. We've seen it. All right, we've seen billionaires' taxes. We've seen Mitt Romney's taxes. All these different people running, and they put out their taxes, and their percentages are much lower. Try to get your taxes between like 7 and 12%. See what happens. Okay. That is not the case. So of course, they pay more than a dollar amount because I've showed you the charts. They have the majority of the wealth by a country mile. Now, this is what I was talking about, and this goes back to what you just said about these politicians, right? Check this right here out. This is out of New Jersey. Just came out yesterday.
New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez and his wife indicted by a federal grand jury. The senator is accused of using his office to help several businessmen from New Jersey, as well as the Egyptian government, in exchange for receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars in gifts, including cash, a luxury vehicle, even gold bars. The Department of Justice is expected to hold a news conference about this at 11 a.m. Eastern. Let's bring in NBC's Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian and former federal prosecutor Ankush Khadori. So, Ken, what more are we learning about these charges?
Good morning, Anna. This is a shocking series of corruption charges against the powerful chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee and his wife, accusing them of a bribery conspiracy. And it's really complicated here. It's multi-pronged. It accuses the senator of accepting cash and gifts, including, as you mentioned, gold bars, a luxury Mercedes-Benz vehicle, in exchange, and they call it bribery, for taking official action to benefit the people that were paying the money.
And what's even crazier is this guy went through something similar 6 years ago, right? Which means he had to run for re-election after that. And so when they re-elected him, he got off by a hung jury or something. So not his first trip down memory lane. We'll see what happens. Now, when it does come to the CEO pay, understand this from 2018, but this isn't, America is the worst, okay? This isn't like a normal thing around the world. And this is, I showed you, this 265 is actually 400 now, right? India, I've heard about India, how they're just like, you got rich and poor, no middle class. But when you start scrolling down, you see how low these numbers get. And you'll notice Japan's not even on here, because Japan is way lower. A lot of the Asian countries are way lower. I was surprised to see China at 127, by the way. But, it's definitely not a worldwide thing. It's more, it's just us because we tied their compensation to the stock. Now, this viewer hits the nail on the head. You can blame Bill Clinton for why CEO pay exploded. In order to try and curb CEO salary, he put into a law where CEO pay was capped. And because of that, this current system of boards constantly granting millions of stock options was instituted. That's exactly right. And you see right here. Here's the chart to prove what he's saying. You can look. That goes from 1980 to 1990, and look what happened in the next going up to 2005, right? So here's 90. Clinton came in at what, 94, 92, somewhere in there? I think it was 92, right? And then boom, goes from 107 to 411, right? Drops back off, and now we know this only goes to 2010. Now we know we're up to 400 plus on this again. And so that's right. They ended up attaching it to the stock and everything, which sucks because it's not about the performance of the company, as you heard the GM CEO say, right? It's really about the stock. And so, my question is this. Here's I have a question. Some companies do this. I actually heard Tesla does this, but I don't have any proof of that. Let me know in the comments if I'm right on that. But I swear they give their workers actual shares, and they're not unionized, but they'll give them shares of the company, which obviously makes them, pretty wealthy, actually. That's what Google did, right? Remember Google, most of their regular employees became millionaires because they had the Google stock. But I'm just curious about that, like, forget giving them 20% raises, give them stock, right? Like, cut what the CEO and all the executives are getting, which is crazy amount of options, and start, lowering that and then moving that over to regular employees. Like, let them have skin in the game. I don't know. Am I wrong on this? And I might be missing some tax implication or something. I'm not sure about that. But I don't know. It would make sense to me. I mean, if I was an employee, I'd rather have the stock if I was with a good company. If I wanted a garbage company, you don't want the stock. Trust me, it's just going to go down. But if you're with a good one, I mean, why not? And you will actually have skin in the game and ownership in the company. So I know that's one way I'd fix that problem, but maybe I'm missing something. And then we go on to the second from the last comment here, and it says, "Hey Mike, if a war tends to increase GDP, what's stopping China from invading Taiwan, especially if America's #1 importer is Mexico now? Could be wrong on this, but just wanted to hear your opinion." And understand, if they invade Taiwan, it's not to increase their GDP. America does that stuff, not China. China's had this plan in place it's like a 50-year plan or whatever years, whatever the president said it was over there. And so they just want to retake Taiwan also because, why? They would control the chip industry, like 90% of it or something. So that would really put America in a real hurt lock, and most of our allies as well. So I don't think it has anything to do with wanting to increase their GDP. And so that's just my belief. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. And lastly here from John, he says, the Biden open border policy is to keep wages down. And I don't live in Texas. I was just curious. I saw this footage come out Thursday. And this is like some kind of drone cam here. And this is in Normandy, Texas, I guess. As opposed to this is illegals coming across the border. Is this BS or is this actually real? I'm just curious for those who live in Texas. I've seen other videos like this. And I don't know if he's trying to keep wages low or whatever it is. Here's what I do know. And, the one thing I really get tired of, and I don't know when we start doing this as Americans, all of a sudden, immigrants became the enemy somehow. I don't get it, because if you've ever been a restaurant manager, and I told you I worked in the restaurants as a regular employee, became a general manager on there and stuff. And, the people most of them who come here, they're just trying to get a better life. Do I condone them coming illegally? Of course not. But here's the problem. You were blaming them. If you want to fix the problem, one, you have to get Congress to solve the problem, because each party at one point in time has had all three, the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they do nothing to fix the immigration system. Why? It's very easy. Because they get to fire you up to vote for them, because they know how to push your buttons on both sides of the aisle to keep them voting, right? If you fix it, you can't run on it anymore. See that? What's number two is simple. Is the fact that you got employers out there who ignore the laws put in place anyway, and they employ them. If there's no jobs to come here and get, wouldn't be a problem, but they don't really go after the employers at all. They go after the employees, but they won't go after the employers. And then the fines they're getting from these big companies, it's nothing. The amount of money they're saving on labor and stuff, why not keep doing it, right? I remember when I worked in there, literally I hired this one guy, and I was like, man, this don't even look like him. So I had to send it to corporate anyway, but I called HR, and they said, oh, that's not your problem. Don't worry about it. If he's got his papers, it is what it is. And I'm like, and I work for a big company. I was like, okay then. He's a good guy. He's a hard worker. But I'm like, there's no way this is him on this document. They didn't care. So just keep that in mind. And depending on where put your anger maybe in somewhere else, in another place, I guess, in a way. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents and stuff. So hope you guys, I appreciate all the comments, all the questions and everything. Please put your, answers down there, your comments, anything. Want to look at it, and we'll talk about it in next Saturday's video. So have a good one, and I'll see you guys Sunday.